Welcome to another episode of It Takes a Viking, the official podcast of the Salem State University alumni and friends community. My name is Mike Mitchell, Director of Engagement in the Office of Advancement here at Salem State. It's a special back-to-school edition of It Takes a Viking. Today we welcome the Dean of the School of Continuing and Professional Studies here at Salem State, Dean Barbara Layne. Dean Layne, how are you?
Very well, thank you. Nice to be here.
Welcome to the show. We're looking forward to telling your story, talking about what the School of Continuing and Professional Studies is, and learning a little bit more about you, which is part of these conversations.
Fantastic.
The first question I always like to ask folks who come on the show is, what brought you to Salem State? How did you end up here?
So the story actually begins in 1973. My mother, who was a diploma nurse, re-registered for school as 45 years old, went back to school to get her bachelor's degree. She said to my father, "I'm going back to school." And he said, "Over my dead body." And she said, "Get out of my way." And I was in kindergarten and I stood in registration line with her. And so she started her bachelor's degree when I started kindergarten, and she finished her master's degree when I finished high school. So I lived the experience of the adult working student. And it is such an honor and kind of an irony for me that this is where I have ended up. I grew up south of Boston, and my husband got a job up here north of Boston, and I've always wanted to be at Salem State. I actually worked in financial aid and admissions for the majority of my professional career and was able to finally get here about 10 years ago.
And what was it about this specific opportunity, perhaps here in the Dean's office at Salem State, that interested you and that drew you here?
I think there were two parts to it. The first is that prior to that, all of the colleges I worked for were private colleges with high tuition costs. And I really wanted to be part of the state system. I had lost my taste of telling students that, they needed to spend a tremendous amount of money to get a good quality education. The second was that I really saw Salem State as the opportunity for the community, that students have second chances, students for whom, larger, more prestigious institutions might not have been an option. They come here, they are well nurtured, and they thrive. And that really attracted me to the ethos of Salem State.
Talking about our students, it's a new school year. Let's just go back to your time in undergrad, for example. Do you have a class or anything from your time in either undergraduate or your post-undergraduate experience that you look back on most fondly as one of your favorites from your time as a student?
Actually, I'm a product of Bridgewater State College.
Excellent.
And I was a psychology major, and my favorite class was with Dr. Sue Todd. It was Sensation and Perception. And I remember the content of that course just really opening my eyes to understanding everybody experiences the world in a different way. I think we all think your shirt's blue, but for someone who's colorblind, it's not blue. And so all about that sensation, that perception, really taught me empathy, to understand that everyone is kind of working in the world with their own set of vision.
And as you consider your role today in the Dean's Suite and think about the day-to-day operations and the work that's done here, understanding that perhaps the conventional student may not be coming through the continuing and professional studies program here at the college, how do the needs of the students, how do you identify what those are? How do you work to meet those needs while also balancing, the relationships with faculty, but also the larger picture goals of the school on a day-to-day basis?
I think you bring up an excellent point. Higher education has been designed for the traditional aged 18 to 22-year-old residential full-time student. Yet statistically, almost half of all students nationwide don't meet that definition. And so much of what I feel I do in terms of advocating for the students that come through my area is to remind the university and higher education as a whole that they exist, that they have different needs, they have different challenges, they have different ways that they're balancing their work, their family, their home life. They have a desire to not only complete their degree, but model degree completion for their family. And that's really the main goal I see when I'm interacting with our students and our faculty and the university writ large.
And it's such an interesting point that you brought up about saying modeling degree completion for their family. I remember a few years ago, and you may not know about this or remember it if you were there, but when we were in our first commencement celebration out of COVID, we had done something called Viking Roll Call, where students could bring a number of family members. It was a very small, intimate celebration.
Yes.
And a young man from the business school was crossing the stage to complete his degree, and the president asked him, has anybody else in your family gone to Salem State? And he said, actually, my dad is graduating this year too. And the dad didn't want to participate in the ceremony.
Aww.
And so President Keenan looked at him and said, what's it going to take for me to get you to walk across the stage and graduate? And so the father jokingly said, if you come down here and announce my name, I'll cross the stage right now. So President Keenan, being, the ever accommodating guy that he is, went down there, announced his name, and the dad graduated. But it's such an interesting thought that for the student that may not have had anybody go before them, seeing a parent go through that, or a caregiver, or another loved one who's come before you, can be an incredibly powerful experience.
I have been at other institutions where I have seen mother and son, mother and daughter, parent combinations of graduation. And it's the multi-generational impact of higher education can't be understated.
And as you've touched on a moment ago, I think the conventional student, again, that comes here to Salem State, the 18 to 22-year-old, is likely working a couple of jobs, trying to get involved in some groups and clubs, things like that, but also understanding that folks that may be coming through continuing and professional studies might have some additional logs on the fire, so to speak. What are some of the challenges that they're facing right now, and how does the school help them to navigate those?
So when we talk about attracting and enrolling students, when you're attracting and enrolling an 18-year-old, they're not thinking, if I'm going to go to college. They're more likely thinking, where am I going to go to college? For the adult student, each semester is a new enrollment opportunity. Every semester, they're deciding, should I be in school? Can I be in school? How can I be in school? And so the challenge for us is to help them get the support they need. For most of them, it's time. They're working full time. Most have families. Some are, again, working 2 jobs. And they're not here for the educational experience necessarily. They're trying to get the degree as quickly and efficiently as possible to get a promotion at work, to be able to pursue a new job. And so we need to help them see the value each semester of continuing on that path.
And in talking about access, and particularly nowadays, especially equity, and I think the traditional, what's widely perceived publicly as the definition of equity is one thing, but it's so much more than that one thing that it's perceived to be. It is the parent with a couple of kids at home, or who's taking care of someone, or whatever the case may be. It's about creating an opportunity for them to succeed and thrive as well. And so what are some of the steps? So if I'm a potential student and I come back and I'm interested in the support from the School of Continuing and Professional Studies, what are some of those kind of introductory conversations look like? What are we talking about?
So one of the ones that I am hoping to actually make even a bigger part of our world here in School of Continuing and Professional Studies is prior learning assessment, the ability to have students gain credit for work experience. We have worked in partnership with the School of Education to develop some challenge exams specifically for the paraprofessionals who may have been in the classroom for 25 years but have not been in an educational setting in this school getting the content, but they can demonstrate their proficiency of that content. We want to expand that because, again, it's a way for an adult student to complete a degree quickly and efficiently and leverage their learned experience. We have another program that I'm very proud of that actually is open to all students, but it runs in the summer, which means it runs through continuing education. It's called the Summer Credit Recovery Program. And what that is, if a student has struggled with their coursework during the academic year, if they've earned a D, an F, or they withdrew from the course, and the course is on the summer schedule, they can retake the course at a 50% discount. as part of that program, we have a dedicated summer success coach who works with those students on time management, study skills, really emphasizing the fact that during the summer it's an accelerated program. And so you struggled with the course in a 16-week format. You're retaking it in the summer in a 6-week format. Let's talk about, again, how you're going to map out that path to success. We have right now an 89% pass rate of students who participate, 96% retention rate into the next year. So this past summer, we had 9 students graduate because the course that they had performed poorly on was what was holding them back from graduating.
So persisting, succeeding,
thriving,
graduating, thriving.
Yeah.
Outstanding. Higher ed is in a different place now than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. If you were to look ahead 10 years, what do you think the landscape looks like? How do you see it changing?
It's a scary prospect because of so much of what our own experiences were as students, and we want to replicate that in our university, and it's part of who we are. All of us who went through education, who then become employees in an education, really have that embedded feeling about 4 years, general education, major, minor. The future landscape is going to look much more on demand. We already are seeing in the accreditation area proposals for 3-year applied bachelor degrees.
Wow.
So what does that mean for so much of how we identify what learning is, how to impart critical thinking skills, writing skills, how it just is going to change so much of the content and how we deliver it. We surveyed our students, not just CE, but the university as a whole, during that pandemic time period about how they learned best and what modality they preferred to register for courses in. And there's a huge disconnect. Students understand that they learn better in person, but when asked what they want for available courses and how they want to register, it's online. It's like we can't undo the move to online. So what do we as an institution need to do to better replicate that learning environment that happens in person in an online, more accessible modality?
And so as you talk about optimal learning modality per student, for those that may not kind of understand what a modality is, we offer the traditional in-seat, in-person classroom experience is one. And then as I understand it, there are 2 kind of separate online experiences that you could participate in, one being a virtual classroom where you're live with the professor, and then a third option being asynchronous, where it's kind of everything is posted, go at your own pace as long as you're meeting the deadlines and passing things, right?
Right.
Okay. If a student is watching our conversation, a prospective student is watching our conversation, and they've been hemming and hawing, should I go back? What's one piece of advice you would give them to consider it?
That there's a college that fits every student and that there is a place for every student to fit. That so many traditional age students think that going right into college, right out of high school, they have to go to the best college, live on campus, have this big experience. That isn't for everyone. And that there are many different paths to completing a post-secondary education. For some, it isn't a 4-year college. For some, it's a 2-year college. For some, it's a trade school. Discerning what is your path and being okay, not having to feel like you have to apologize that you didn't do what all your peers did.
I think it's important to acknowledge that life happens, whatever it may be, military service, work, family development, all of those things. But if you're watching and you have been on the fence about it, or you maybe are a few classes away from completing your Salem State degree or a degree somewhere else, and you want to come back, let's get you in touch with the dean's office and get you to finish your degree and become a Salem State Viking. You've kind of alluded to this already, but in addition to one piece of advice that you would give, if there was any one kind of concrete thing that you would want somebody to take away from our conversation today, maybe particularly students, but anyone in general, what would it be?
Try. Just try. You can come to the continuing education area and just take a class. You're nervous. You haven't been in school for a long time. You're not sure if it's a good fit. You're not sure if you're ready. Just try one class. If it works, take another class.
And that could be anything. It could be a Spanish class if you want.
It could be anything.
Yeah.
It could be anything. And before you know it, you've built your confidence. This isn't that hard. I can do this. And you're going to find that you're on your way to completing your degree. But you have to try. And it's not an all or nothing. It's not I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to complete my degree and it's going to take me 6 years because I'm going to go part-time. I'll just take a class. And if it goes well, I'll take another class.
And you've touched on something it reminds me that, perhaps 30 or 40 years ago, you had your, what would have then been considered more traditional majors, your business, education, the sciences, things like that. There are new and different majors now that maybe somebody who's watching or thinking about it didn't have access or opportunity to, something like a healthcare studies, for example, where if you're interested in healthcare management but don't want to be a nurse or a doctor or a provider of any kind, but it also takes a particular skill set to work in the healthcare industry, there's so many more opportunities now than there may have been the last time you gave it a shot. So try. Give it a try. I don't think I could have said it any better. Dean Layne, a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to everybody for watching. This has been a back-to-school edition of It Takes a Viking, the official podcast of the Salem State University Alumni and Friends community. My name is Mike Mitchell, Director of Engagement in the Office of Advancement here at Salem State. And until our next episode, thanks for watching.